Hello and welcome back to part 2 of our Mandala series. The file up to here is in the video description, so if you just want to follow along and don't care what happened before, you can just follow along at this point. In the video description, download it, open it, and then you're ready to go. Alright, so today we are going to create a very dependent on the things we already created before, we're going to create a little circle around those things here. So basically, when we are having our little extensions, what I want to create would be a circle-like design, like this. And I want it to be corresponding to the size that it has in the difference, right? So we are going to use several components here, and we're also going to figure out the vector that it is placed on, because we will need that as well. Good. So first of all, we are going to create the circle itself. So we're going to use the endpoints here, and then we're going to create a circle. Again, look at the canvas, type in circle, and then you have the circle. Again, if you don't know where the component's coming from, you can always just click on it like this, and then you will manage to see where it comes from. Or you can just double click the canvas. Now here, we are going to use the endpoint in order for us to create the circle here. And here, you have our circles. Well, this is nice and all, but our circles are overlapping and they're kind of like in the middle of it, right? So it might be a little bit too much, you know. I might not like those circles, how they're defined there. Okay, now how can we make this better? Well, we are going to look basically from this point to the next point, what the distance is. So we have one point, and then another point, and then maybe another point here. And this will then basically we'll look at the distance to this point and the distance to this point, and then it gives us like a number like, I know, 3.8, and I know 4. But this would be more probably like 8.4, you know, different distances. And it also will give us the distance from this point to this point, which is basically 0. So there's a component which is called point closest points. We have one for closest point and closest points. What we need here right now is the closest points, plural, because otherwise we would just look at the point itself. I will just show you what those both things actually do, so you will have a good example of how this could be like a little trap for yourself. So we have the points that we are searching from. This would be the points here. We're going to put this in here, and then we're also going to take the point clouds, which is basically the same things, the same list, but I wanted to search from all the different points. So we're going to use the point cloud effect. And then we also have the counts, how many of those things are. So if you're going to use the panel, you double click and type in // you're seeing the different results. Here we're also going to use this one. Yeah, and we also need to flatten this one. So there are two ways to flatten the list of points. We can either right click and flatten, or we can double click and use the flatten tree component as well, which would basically do the same thing. For visualization purposes, I'm going to use this one for now. Okay, now we see the distance. As you see here, first would be 0, the second one would be 0.29, that would be this one, and then the fourth one would be 0.44. This would be that one. If we look at the other one, we see the result would be only 0.000. This might be a little bit, you know, might not be the thing that we want. This component, by the way, it might not be the most optimal solution that we're looking for, But for now it works. What we also could do is that we are looking for the adjacent points in the list and look at the distance here. I will just quickly show you how this could be done. So we're going to take the shift list, going to take the points here. We're also going to flatten those, and then we're going to shift the list one time to the right and one time to the left. And we're going to shift it by 1, and one time to the negative and one time to the positive. And then we're going to use the distance command and use the first point here, the second point here, and the other point over here. So now we have also the distance between those points. So if we look here, for example, we are having the same distance, or maybe actually not. Because here, for example, we have the 0.29 and 0.44. Here the 0.4 shows up. Then here we need to use the negative one, and use this as the point B. And there we have 0.29. So now we need to take a look at which one of those is the smaller one. We're going to use the first number and the second number. Again, this is optional. You can just use this and this would be fine, but this would be computational a bit more linear. So you use the first and the second point, and then we always can see which one of those would be one or the other. And with this, we would then need to use a weaving pattern and use this as the pattern, use those as the streams, and then we would probably have the same example. Oh, I just need to actually just shift it around like this, and we would have the same example. Otherwise, we can use the list item component here, use the distance here, and use index number 1. So we would have the same list around here. You see those values would be equal. Okay, good. Now we did like a lot of numbers right now, and like what the fuck is happening, right? But it all makes sense now when we use the circle command again. So I'm going to use the circle command here, and I'm going to use the input points, and then I'm going to use either this one or that one. Actually, we need to graph this tree over here so it kind of matches the tree structure, and we're going to use this one here. As you see now, we're having a very interesting pattern going on here, right? Now, this is nice and good, but there are two things which are, personally at least, still bugging me a little bit. The first of all, they're overlapping. I want to have them in the middle. And the other one is kind of, we see the little circle here, which is kind of going a bit too far. So how are we gonna fix that? So first of all, we're going to, on the radius, we're gonna you can make it two ways. We can either use a division thing, make the panel with 2 and divide it by 2, and then have it like this, have it a bit smaller. Or there's another way. We are going to use it directly here, gonna use the expression command, divide it by 2 here, and then have the result in the same way, a little bit more cleaner. Good. Now there's another thing that's bugging me, and that's this one here. You see here, the thing is kind of going into the circle, but I want this to be on the edge. So in order for this to work, we have to look at the initial line that we used here. So we have the line here, and we're going to use the evaluate length commands. And it should, let's see, it should give us a amount of length here. Or we actually would need to do the following. So we have the length between 0 and 1, and then we also have the circle. So what I basically want is I want to recreate this curve, but make it to that it stops over there. So how do we do that? Well, we have the curve. We use the length command, and that will give us the length of the curve itself, right? Now, when we have that, I basically want to see how much of this curve that there is So you basically there also could be maybe another way here as well. Yeah, which would be maybe a bit more streamlined, because right now here at the curve we kind of use the we want to have it not normalized, not between 0 and 1, but we want to have it dependent on the actual length of the units. So we're going to use the normalized pattern here, and we're going to just simply subtraction the length amount from here, and then use this as the length. Yeah, but you also see here again, because it's not divided by 2, so you also use the division command here again, and maybe actually put the division around here. So we are going to change this and remove it, and use this as the distraction on that. And you see now the point is exactly on the edge of the curve. So now we have the point 1, the point 2, and we're going to use just a line to recreate the start from here, and then the endpoint from here. And then we're going to just hide the things we had before. So we actually changed this curve a little bit from the past, but we made it so it is new. Good. And now we're going to just, I will just leave this here, and we want to make a stream filter or stream filter. Oh no, and just a boolean here. So we are making a different options between how do you want to have it. Processing might be useful for the future, so we know what we can do. So we're gonna processing way, 1 or 2, and we are going to use the processing way number 2. That's actually, we see there is actually a little bit of a difference going on here. Because we needed to put it not here, but the processing stream would be coming from here and from there. Yeah, it's still a little bit different. That's funny. That's like the other way, basically, around. Oh well, that's something we can look into. But for now, let's just then just keep it here, remove that, and we can maybe bug fix this later if we need. That's actually a tool we don't need at the moment, so we can just put it up here and make it disable so it will not use any processing power. Oh. Here, activate this. We select the line, remove some of those things here we might not need, and then we have that. I'm just gonna make those curves also a bit invisible. Good. Now, this was a lot of stuff, but obviously we can still, if we have the beginning line here, it also will, I actually, wait. I put it over here. So, okay. So you see those things are still adjusting just the way we wanted to have, and they're basically creating new little pieces every time we are creating our little things here. And actually here there's the beginning thing, so there's some weird stuff happening, you see, right? Like this is only here happening. That's maybe something we need to fix along the way. But yeah, other than that, you see, we have nice little things, and the divisions would make it smaller or bigger the way we want it all the way. Still works just as we intended to want it. Good. Great. Okay. So now that we have that, yeah, we will see. I will see in the next tutorial. The file now at the end will also be in the video description. So if you couldn't follow along or there were some mistakes happening along the way, you can simply just go in there. If you want to put your own curve in there, make sure you are replacing this part here with your own curve, right? So this is basically the input here to the left. So with that, hope you learned something today. Thank you very much, and see you in the next one.